Excellent. So we are ready, and we are happy to see that more and more people are joining. So, hello everyone. We are happy that you joined again for our European Wilderness Network webinar, despite the fact that we had some technical difficulties on Tuesday, so we had to reschedule, but it's great, and we are very happy that so many people are joining us. So I would give the floor to Vlado to introduce the magical Ukrainian wilderness. And yeah, Vlado, the floor is yours.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much attending this workshop, which is actually already third in line with a subtitle European Wilderness Network. In a previous first workshop or webinar, we focused on wilderness in Scandinavia and northern part of Europe. In the second part, 2 weeks ago, we focused on Western and Central Europe and the south part of Europe, where we introduce the network of wilderness in this part of Europe. And today we are going to focus on the eastern part of Europe, specifically on a country specifically the country Ukraine. Why Ukraine has a specific webinar? Simply because there is still a lot of wilderness, and we managed to create a quite a substantial part of the network, particularly from the wilderness area located in Ukrainian part of Carpathian Mountains. So this is just few rules what needs to be follow up on this Zoom model, Zoom technical stuff. Please, during the presentations, don't put your voice or unmute the button. Please keep switch off. And then you can write out, you can put down the question and answer, and my colleagues, assistants help me to translate it, to let me know, and we can together discuss about them either during presentations or afterwards. There will be definitely space for chat. If you have something to say, you can simply send a signal, raise a hand, or whatever. So, short introduction. European Wilderness Society, European organization, non-profit organization, which is only pan-European wilderness and environmental advocacy non-profit organization with a dedicated multicultural and experienced professional team. You have to understand that this organization, this international NGO, was created almost 12 years ago, and it was a continuation of the previous project, which was named Pen Parks. Today, this organization is combining from all of the Europe experts and specialists on the wilderness, wildlife, generally nature conservationists, actually any kind of people interested in a certain aspect of wilderness, including researchers, scientists, obviously the people from the tourism sector or tourism experts, or simple people love to go outside and enjoy specific experience and environment offered by the wilderness. And then there are also people focused on expert on the marketing and business professional, legal advisors, which are very useful and helpful to support our international work. And definitely the advanced status of these people involved in the Wilderness Society are wilderness advocates, people who proactively struggle or support or advocate or speak and visit wilderness or even interpret. European Wilderness Society, what is our mission? What's the main objective of this international non-profit organization? First of all, it's identify, to find out where are the leftovers of the wilderness still surviving inside the Europe, or where is a potential for restoration of wilderness all of the European subcontinent. The second part of the mission is to designate, to make clear that these specific areas, what, for example, today we are going to present from Ukraine, are legally designated, and they have a management team or stewardship team, and there is a responsible entity and team of people who take care about this piece of land. And the last but not least, the part of a mission is to promote this unique subject, unique category of protected area wilderness, because it was not so common in the past decades that it was well known. Today is more and more people understand and believe that this is a part of our not only cultural but natural heritage of the Europe. European Wilderness Society includes the build-up the European Wilderness Network, and the network includes 5 big categories like European wild rivers, wild coast, wild islands, wild forests, and wilderness itself. These 4 wild subjects, wild areas, has been added 2-3 years ago because we realized that actually that to the category of wilderness is not so easy to include the element like wild rivers, which are strips, or wild coast, or even wild islands was very quite a bit time, several years, almost completely forgotten and ignored. Today, it's an important element or important part of wilderness network. The uniqueness of this is that this is a small, it can be very small isolated ecosystem in the middle of sea, including the terrestrial part of the land, but also the sea coast. And the members of European Wilderness Society are also dedicated to the education of the next generation of Europeans with the subject specifically on wilderness. This is my short introduction. My name is Vlado. You already know Vlado Vančura. I am Slovakian. My background is forestry. I studied forestry university and resource management. And the first few years I worked for Slovakian State Forest Service. Later on, I switched to become the park management in Low Tatra and High Tatra mountains, where I become responsible for developing the policy of the management, forest management inside the protected areas and these newly created national parks. And then later on, I switched to the non-profit sector. I started to collect experience in the many countries all over the Europe, Northern America, like Canada, United States, but also Siberia and the Soviet Union. Currently, in the last several years, I am in a position of vice chairman of European Wilderness Society. And I am based in Liptovský Hrádok, which is in Slovakia, in the northern part of Slovakia, close to the Poland border. So, at the beginning, there was a lot of discussions. What kind of wilderness we are going to identify and develop definitions relevant for Europe. After several long years of discussions, there was agreement among the more than 300 participants and several organizations that based on the IUCN wilderness definitions, there was an updated paragraph or sentences defining what means wilderness for European context because of our European history and remnants of wilderness we still have in our subcontinent. There was decided there will be 2 subcategories, the wild area, and the definition is saying that wild areas have a high level of predominance of natural process and natural habitats. They tend to be individually smaller or more fragmented than wilderness areas. Also, although they often cover extensive tracts. The condition of their natural habitats, processes, and relevant species is, however, often partially or substantially modified by the past human activities, such livestock herding, hunting, fishing, and collecting berries and mushrooms. And this is a very typical for, especially for Central and Western European countries, this kind of heritage from the past. So wilderness definition tailor-made on European context is saying that wilderness areas are governed by open-ended, undefined natural processes. They are composed of native habitats and species, and they are large enough for the effective ecological functioning of natural processes. They are unmodified or only slightly modified and without intrusive or extractive human activities, settlements, infrastructure, or visual disturbances. This is just 3 simple sentences, but they are combining a lot of work behind, and even content is even more important and interesting. Let's see, we will see coming slides. Hello? There is some echo in this moment, I don't know why. The slides showing the concept of wilderness continuum. This is actually the way how we introduce this wilderness definition using this graphic. In the middle part of the slides, there is a continuum of human modification, this grayish or reddish part of the line. Above, there are different type of lands, which has been started from wilderness on the right corner, and then slowly moving to the left-hand side through the semi-natural, agricultural, intensively used land to the urban, but that means the cities. So this is a way how the wilderness quality slowly, step by step during the history basically disappeared, and urban, it's at the other edge of this line, showing completely urbanized ecosystems and habitats where people are and man is living. Below this middle part of the line, there is a other way around. On the bottom part, you can see the wilderness quality, starting from the land which is not considered to be wild anymore. And that's a basically urban intensive use or agricultural land. And then in the middle part, this gray, the greenish stuff, where is a low level of first signs of the wilderness quality, which is actually the process which is also called the rewilding. And that quality of wilderness is slowly growing up to reach certain point. This is this line, vertical line, showing that this is a moment when European Wilderness Society starts to showing the interest that that specific area can have theoretically potential for become the wilderness. And since that moment, we implement and introduce the international audit system, where in the 4 different categories, from bronze, silver, gold to platinum, we do the assessment, audit of the quality of wilderness, starting from medium, going to the high quality level of the wilderness still possible to find in Europe. So this is a concept of wilderness continuum as a graphical, which many people like much more than just text of definition. Wilderness in a short means basically that's an area which are currently with no human extractions. That means that there is no hunting, there is no logging, no mineral collection, no mining, no deadwood collection. There are no human interventions, that means no diseases or alien species control. And there are no active restoration measures done in that area. This is simply saying land with open-ended, undefined natural dynamic processes. And based on this simple list of the conditions, there was developed a wilderness quality standard and audit system. And in the last several years, there was already several alternatives, several versions of this document developed and updated step by step. And recently now valid document is actually European Wilderness Quality Standard and Audit System 2.0, which combine experience from the previous couple decades of work on the subject of European wilderness. This document can be found also on European Wilderness Society website. European Wilderness Network, after the almost 20 years of activities, is currently including the network of wilderness scattered all over Europe. There are currently 41 members scattered all over Europe, covering more than 350,000 hectares of audited wilderness. And that audit is based on the European Wilderness Quality Standard and Audit System. And as I said already at the beginning, significant part of these 40 areas are located in countries like Ukraine. This is a process which can be described as a unified approach to wilderness stewardship and the representation of wilderness and its challenges. That's non-intervention stewardship. It's one of the major conditions or requirements if the area would like to become the member of European Wilderness Network. And obviously this network is including spectrum of different habitats, the typical for Europe. This is just illustrations, pictures illustrating different habitats and different kind of the wilderness. This is an example of marine or coast, wild coast. Similar size here with the old beach forest, which can be category of the wild forest, wilderness or wild river. This is the slides explaining 4 different categories based on the size, quality, and etc. There are 4 labels for wilderness quality depending on a number of factors: size, stewardship, research, etc. And wilderness is labeled with a bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. And based on these, this is a result of the independent audit done in the potential wilderness. And then the auditors come to the conclusions and decisions what kind of label can be awarded to the specific particular wilderness area. And that is important to say that area which has been awarded by the bronze have a potential to enlarge or extend the quality of the wilderness in the coming years. And they can have an opportunity in the coming years to be re-audited or recertified for the silver or gold or maybe even the platinum. Current network, this 41 areas, including all 4 different categories from bronze to platinum. So there are examples. So let's go focusing more on the subject of these specific presentations, focusing on Ukraine. As we can see, that's a huge country on the map on the right-hand side. And all 7 wilderness, 3 wild forests, and 3 wild rivers are concentrated in a very western corner of the Ukraine in the area where Carpathians are passing by through this country. There is one candidate wilderness nearby the Kiev, and that's a Bondarivsky wetland wilderness, where only recently at the second half of last year, the couple of auditors visited that place and made the very first test or quick test and come with a suggestion that this area can become potentially also wilderness, but needs to implement more comprehensive wilderness audit. So let's start to introduce a few of the most important and most significant wilderness areas in the Carpathian part of the Ukraine. This is a Chornyy Dil Wilderness located inside of Sinevir National Nature Park, which is this big area, and small fragments of the strict reserve, strictly protected 1580 hectares. And there are a few more strict reserves of existing and even the potential wilderness in this Sinevir area. And they are in the process of identification of them or the auditing process. The most typical habitat of this specific Chornyy Dil Wilderness is old growth broadleaf and conifer forest, typical Carpathian forest in this part of Europe, and become the member of European Wilderness Network in 2016. Biodiversity of this Chornyy Dil Wilderness is very remarkable. It includes all 4 typical Carpathian carnivores like brown bear, wolf, wildcat, and lynx as well. Many other large animals like badger, red deer, roe deer, marten, ermines, endangered species, especially birds like owl, tritons, but also the insects, beetles like Rosalia beetle. And obviously several hundred different plant species which are typical for this part, eastern part of Carpathians. This is a scenery of showing the mosaics of pictures showing the value or habitat types of this Chornyy Dil Wilderness, including the limestone bridges or windows, deep beech forest, even the area above the tree line, which used to be used in the past century by active cattle or sheep grazing, but not anymore. A large area has been abandoned. An area which are still in the use of the grazing were not included to this Chornyy Dil Wilderness. Let's follow second area. Again, we are still in the Sinevir National Nature Park. The name is a Darvaika. Size is 1450 hectares, 1450 hectares. Member became 2018 and includes fragments of old growth broadleaf and conifer forest. The label was silver, and it is necessary to say in this moment that this area has a great potential to enlargement. So maybe even additional 15 or maybe 2000 hectares can be added during the additional audit work and support of the local park management to go and visit this remote area inside the Sinevir National Nature Park in the coming year or two. Biodiversity. First of all, we have to say that this fragment, this part of the wilderness is also recognized internationally by UNESCO World Heritage Beech Forest, and it's one of the almost more than 70 fragments of the beech forest in the Europe-wide UNESCO World Heritage Network. From the biodiversity, it's a remarkable presence of the wood growth, stork, eagle owl, and a full spectrum of the large carnivore like wolf, brown bear, wildcat, or lynx. Again, examples of the different habitats from this area: typical Carpathian spruce forest, abandoned tree covered by, crisscrossed by the dead fallen trees because of wind or bark beetle, and then plenty of plants growing in this subalpine zone of the spruce forest, which is here creating the tree line. Gorgany. We are moving a little bit to the north edge of Carpathian Mountains. And this is one of the most strictly protected piece of land in the Ukrainian part of Carpathian Mountains, Gorgany Wilderness, Gorgany Strict Reserve. Originally, this area is a little bit larger, but subject of the subject of the wilderness audit was covered only these 4,800 hectares. And there is additional more than 600, maybe 700 hectares still potential for enlargement of this wilderness. It has to be said that this is one of the best and very strictly protected land since Soviet era. This area is officially not open even for visitors. There is no official tourist trails. Nevertheless, recent monitoring revealed that there are some illegally made the trails for local tourists who knows the area, and they visit and they sneak inside and try to get this experience. The member of this wilderness is member of European Wilderness Network since 2016. Last year, there was a first phase of the re-audit, and next year there is a schedule or plan to do the second part of the audit with a focus on eastern part of this area. And once this can be done, the area can become the full member of the European Wilderness Network for following 10 years. Now the quality, it's labeled the gold, which means very, very high quality area. It's an old-growth beech forest, typical habitats with a Swiss pine, Pinus sembra, and mixed forest, including some conifers. Examples of the biodiversity, local biodiversity hotspots, 1,500 different species of fauna, many rare plants. And it's, as I said, already very strictly protected with very limited access of visitors. Actually, the park management is very, very aware of the value of this area. So he's searching for compromise, how to open opportunity, at least for students, to visit this area legally as a study tour, organized by local rangers, and they build up and open the small part of this Gorgany strict reserve of Gorgany Wilderness to the public, to the students, to the visitors, to the group. If they are announced that they are going to come, the local rangers guide them through the part of this area, 2, 3, 4 hours round trip, showing very, very attractive and interesting area with a very high diversity of ecosystems and habitats, geology, etc. So very, very valuable. And I have to highlight that there is a great potential for enlargement of the wilderness and make it one of the most significant area in our network. This is a series of the pictures showing the different habitats. This is a valley with where every year is falling the avalanche down, and we can see a little bit this corridor cut by the avalanche, and then dense mixed forest, pine and birch and spruce, etc. And on bottom of the right-hand side, we can see a little bit panorama of the mountains with a great and large extensive moraine made of the granite boulders, which is very typical for this Gorgany region, this kind of habitats. Moving from Gorgany to the Hoverla Wilderness, that's a Carpathian National Nature Park, which is, we are moving maybe 50, 60 kilometers east from the Gorgany, and we are entering the large protected area, which is very famous because it's passing through the main highway connecting western and eastern part of Ukraine. In the area is also a large ski area, newly developed ski center. So a lot of people are coming and visiting this protected area. Nevertheless, there are still fragments or strictly protected zones. One of them is Hoverla area. Hoverla is basically including the highest peak of the Ukrainian Carpathian Mountains. This wilderness includes or is covering 4,477 hectares and is member since 2016. Includes mostly old-growth mixed forest, conifer forest in the subalpine zone, the extensive alpine meadows, which has been used in the past by the grazing, but in the last 1 or 2 decades is very visible how succession is starting the overgrown these meadows, which has been created by the previous shepherds and grazing activities. The area has a bronze level with a potential for extensive enlargement, and also more detailed audit is required to very likely the quality label will be increased to the either silver, bronze, maybe even higher. Showing the example of the habitats, you can see on the left-hand side, very typical and nicely developed the tree line, spruce forest, slowly moving on. I'm climbing up to the alpine meadows and zones. We still see the small fragments of the meadow on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, sorry, which has been used for grazing in the past decades and century. Now is slowly overgrowing in a first step by Juniperus communis or Juniperus nana. That's a small conifer shrubs. And then later on, the spruce is coming up and take over of the area. That's a perfect place, and because it's a very remote for habitat for native large carnivores such as brown bear, wolf, wildcat, or lynx. Number of rare invertebrates living in the deadwood, which is piling up inside this growing the spruce forest. High plant diversity on alpine meadows, and most of the area is not accessible for public. That's important to say. However, there is a very good network of the pretty well maintained trails, which is most bringing the visitors to the highest peak of the Ukraine, Hoverla. Some segment of this trail, however, need demanding maintenance and fixing because of erosion and a growing number of visitors going to the highest peak. So that was one of the reasons why the highest part of the mountains, because of pressure of visitors, was not included to this wilderness area in this first audit or first assessment mission. Pictures of different habitats. As we can see, the spruce forest, again, typical Carpathian spruce forest with growing in a growing phase on the first picture on the left, and then on the right hand side we can see the old growth forest with a growing amount of the deadwood, fallen trees, which actually provide a lot of excellent habitats for insects, invertebrates, but also fungus and typical old growth forest flora and fauna. Maramarosh. Maramarosh wilderness. We are moving closer to the south, closer to the Romanian border. And we are actually at the territory of Carpathian Biosphere Reserve. That's an area which is covering, including 7 or 8 fragments of the area, pretty large and pretty big. Some of them are already a member of European Wilderness Network. I believe 3 or 4 of them are already passing the audit, and they are a member of Wilderness Network. This specific one, named the Maramarosh Wilderness at the border with Romania, includes the subalpine spruce forest with the high alpine meadows and vegetation which is recovering after the intensive grazing in the past century. The size of the wilderness, Maramarosh Wilderness, it's more than 3,000 hectares. As I said, it's a part of Carpathian Biosphere Reserve, and member of European Wilderness Network is since 2018. This is actually the largest area of old growth beech forest and mixed forest in Europe with a label of silver. Biodiversity. We can see from the first picture on the left-hand side that there is a panorama of valley completely overgrown by the conifer forest, spruce, including the subalpine and alpine habitats like meadows. This is also element or part of the area belonging to the UNESCO World Heritage Beech Forest. And that's a homeland for typical Carpathian carnivores, bear, lynx, wolf, black storks, from the birds, eagle owl, and many others. All these animals can live here basically because of remoteness and still comparable with the other part of Carpathians, still very relatively low level of intervention or extractions. Nevertheless, in the last few years, we can see the growing impact of the forestry industry, not inside the protected area, but outside in the surroundings. Maramarosh Wilderness series of pictures, perfect old growth forest in a subalpine and alpine, in a subalpine spruce forest, fragments of the clean wild rivers. Signal of the pretty clean air is lichens, Pulmonaria officinalis, growing on abundant maple tree. Uholka-Shyrokyy wilderness. This was actually one of the, that was the second wilderness we identified inside the Ukrainian Carpathy. And that was largest fragments of the old growth beech forest. Obviously, again, member of UNESCO World Heritage Beech Forest Network. And that's a more than 7,000, this one is 13,000 hectares of the, inside the Carpathian Biosphere Reserve. And name of this 13,000 hectares is Uholka-Shyrokyy Wilderness. And we can see that it's include basically from 2 big green parts. And that's in the center part of this Carpathian mountains in Ukraine. These fragments of the wild area includes also 3 wild rivers and plenty of biodiversity, which in this case we are illustrating with a small animals linked to the water and wet environment. But besides that, there is like salamander or frog. But besides that, there is again full spectrum of the carnivores, bear, lynx, wolf, and many others. This is the example of this wide river. There are three wide rivers: Velyka, Uholka, Malá, and Shyrokyy Luh River. 8, 7, and 9 kilometers, very high quality, basically untouched river bed. So the quality label is a platinum, also because of length and the quality of the banks and the river and cleaning of the water. Uholka-Shyrokyy Wilderness, we can see the panoramatic pictures. On the first picture on the left-hand side, sorry, we can see actually the tree line, beech forest, spruce forest, and then the alpine zone. That alpine zone, the subalpine zone, the meadows, they are not belonging to the reserve. There is actually trails and a road going along the ridge, and there is a big transmitter on the top. Maybe you can see this pile. Besides of that, the area is very inaccessible. There is no basically tourist trails going inside this wild forest. So it's a really experience to go inside and spend the night and do the audit, what we did in the past time. And we have seen basically that was very unique because of size, almost these 13,000 hectares, different phases, how beech forest is growing, how old growth beech forest is basically killed by the wind, for example, in a size of the several hectares, and that spot is the first signal of recovering or renewing of the beech forest, new plants, new seedlings coming up, and the new forest starts to grow. So that was a really unique experience, and the experts are saying that this is the largest continuous unfragmented piece of the old growth beech forest in the whole Europe. Zacharovanyy Kray has a very special history regarding the European Wilderness Network, because thanks to the commitment of the local managers, that became the very first area which proactively approached the team of the European Wilderness Society, invited us to come and starts the discussion if in this newly created National Nature Park is actually still fragments big enough of the beech forest which can fit to the quality standard of wilderness. We can see that the area wilderness includes 2, 3, 4 areas, in all size only 1,332 hectares, which is comparable with the previous areas, is not so much, but we decided let's invite them to the network, give them the bronze, because we have seen that there is a great potential inside of this area for linking these green spots to create 1 or 2 larger ones. But even a bigger area, bigger potential is outside of this protected area. And there is ongoing the projects searching for potentially enlargement of the Zacharovanyy Kray National Nature Park, as well as other protected areas in Carpathians. So we invited, and we are happy that we have this area in our network. And again, this area belongs to UNESCO World Heritage Beech Forest area. Example of the diversity, and we see again the salamandra and the dead trunk of the beech with a lot of some fungi. So there is a basically old growth beech forest with a very rare high elevation peatbog, a lot of rare birds like wildback woodpecker, from the animals beaver, squirrel, lynx, wild boar, etc. Most of the area is not accessible officially for people, but there are still some newly created trails which invite people not inside, not in the middle of this strictly protected wilderness, but offering excellent experience, particularly, for example, for this peatbog, which is quite unique in this part of the Carpathian. Examples of the different habitats. We see the valley choked by the beech forest in the springtime when everything starts to grow and nicely green like now. And then on the bottom, we see the example of the speedbog, which is more than 10 hectares of the area, which used to be during the Soviet era actively meliorate, but then there was ongoing projects which basically restore or try to restore this area. And it was pretty successful because even beaver come back and occupy this area. And as you know, beaver really significantly speed up the spontaneous natural restoration of this area. So that's a small, tiny area, but very diverse, very attractive, and very important for European Wilderness Network. Kuzly-Trybushany wild forest. That's a category of the wild forest because the dominant habitat of this area, again, the green spot on the map, it's a beech forest. And that's a part of the Carpathian Biosphere Reserve again. So that's an additional area in this protected area. 1,370 hectares. Member is from 2017. And category of the quality includes a bronze with a potential for enlargement. The necessary is to finalize the quick audit and visit the area outside of this green spot, and very likely area has a potential for enlargement and getting the either silver, maybe even the gold label. Habitats, again, nice choked valley with a broadleaf and mixed forest, a lot of plants, important genetic reservoir for beech, habitat of bear, wolf, lynx, and many, many others, what we have already experienced from the previous wilderness area. Series of pictures, habitats, dead trunks of the wood, rotten slowly, taking apart, fungi helping to disintegrate these trunks, some freshly killed trees, everything stay there. Nobody come here with a chainsaw or tractor to take this timber out. It is quite remote, but it's a concept, that's a philosophy that everything what is killed by the wind or snow or whatever, it stay there because that's a part of the ecosystem dynamic. And that's actually the important step for recovery, for revegetation, for spontaneous recovery of these ecosystems. And it is become already very clear that this is an excellent example for researchers, but also for students, for people who would like to learn how spontaneous natural processes are functioning inside, in this case, Carpathian Mountains. So that was a short guided tour throughout the network of wilderness area in Ukraine. We have to also remember that there is one additional wilderness candidate, Chornyy Wilderness, again located inside the biosphere, the Carpathian Biosphere Reserve. So that's an additional potential area, very soon can become the member of European Wilderness Network. There are few pictures here showing the activity of European Wilderness team. On top of these two slides, this is both from Ukrainian field work from Zacharovanyy Kray and Carpathian Biosphere Reserve. And this is a similar example from other European wilderness when the team of the people visited area, studied the map, going to the field, sleep outside, do the assessment of the light pollution, noise pollution, and many other aspects which belongs to the wilderness quality standard. So if anybody of you like this concept of wilderness in Europe, and particularly in this case in Ukraine, and if you think that there are still some areas which are in the quality of wilderness, that means non-intervention management, no logging, no hunting, no grazing, etc. We would be really happy if you can approach us and let us know where these kind of potential wilderness still can be found in Ukraine or in the surrounding countries. And then we would be very thankful for all your support and interest. So please don't hesitate and let us know. This picture is actually showing our very rare example we presented in the previous workshops, webinars. That's a transboundary wilderness between Austria and Czech wilderness along the Dia River, and Tietal. So, upcoming webinar. This is not active picture. We will let you know. We have the webinar in 2 weeks' time, definitely focusing on another interesting subject, what is linked to the European wilderness. So please stay with us on this website and you will learn about the new potential webinars, what we are offering. More information on this subject can be found here. There is a list of the different websites linked to the specific subjects like Wilderness News, Network, Training and Wilderness Academy, Youth Education process, also the subject of livestock protections, what my colleagues are heavily involved in, and volunteering for European Wilderness Society. We are always welcoming few volunteers. Currently, we have the 2 or 3 of them working in our office or via internet.